Well, joining us now, Allan Sorensen, the Middle East correspondent for the Danish newspaper Crystal Lake Dagblad, and Dr. Suresh Goyal, former ambassador of India. Thank you very much for being with us. Mr. Sorensen, let me come to you first. Is an Israeli ground offensive, in your opinion, inevitable?
It seems so at the moment, because the story develops from minute to minute, and new things happen all the time. There was an attack by Hezbollah in Lebanon now, and Israel has retaliated that attack. But it has also asked its population on the northern border to move southwards, meaning to clear the border area. What Israel says about Gaza is that it wants to weaken Gaza's military strength and its military arm. And that can only be done. It cannot be done by Air Force. It can only be done by an invasion. And there seems to be a consensus that this is an inevitable option for Israel.
And you'd agree, Mr. Sorensen, that the timing of this is something we just don't know right now. There is an assumption that it'll happen soon, but really the decision and the timing for this is entirely in Israeli hands. It might be days or weeks before it happens.
Yes, sure. It could take days. It could take weeks, because Israel was taken by surprise on Saturday with this attack, and Israel is not ready to invade Gaza at the moment. It has sent soldiers. It has called in more than 100,000 reserve soldiers, and some of them are training right now in the northern parts of Israel. And to make a ground invasion, or to start a ground invasion of Gaza, you need a plan. And of course there is a plan in the drawers of the military echelons. But to start invading, you really need to practice before that. So Israelis themselves, military analysts, they are talking about days, if not about a week from now.
Mr. Sorensen, what are you hearing about Lebanon and the situation there? Just in the last little while, apparently the IDF artillery shelling certain areas from across the border from where there have been attacks, or some shooting which has come in.
Yes, that's true. What we hear is that the situation is very fragile. Israel claims that Hezbollah fired upon Israeli military positions with artillery and mortar attacks, and then Israel fired back by hitting a Hezbollah base or a Hezbollah area. We don't know more than that. We don't know if there are casualties, but we know that Hezbollah also has taken responsibility for the attack on the Israeli positions.
Ambassador Goyal, let me come to you next. How do you see this entire situation playing out? But let me be a little bit more specific, sir. My question is this. How do you read the reactions of Qatar and the Saudis? Is there a sense that the fledgling peace process, which could have seen recognition of Israel in the Arab world, has essentially ended now, given the Saudi and Qatari reactions?
Good question, and rather difficult to answer, in the sense that the peace process does not depend entirely on just one thing. That is how Hamas behaves and whether Hamas will continue to fight, etc., etc. But the fact is that Israel is a reality. Arab countries are dealing with Israel. Saudi Arabia will recognize Israel sooner or later. There will be relationship. There are already things happening between the two. Therefore, that is not the point here at all. The point here really is, how will Palestine exist? And I think with this attack by Hamas into the Israeli territory, the very existence of Palestine in an autonomous territory in West Bank and Hamas is now questionable. Vishnu.
Okay. Ambassador, what are India's stakes in the evolving situation? I ask this why, because we've had extremely close and historic ties with the Palestinian movement,
yes.
Yet there is a new, deep strategic relationship with Israel.
Yes. India has moved away from the historical position. If you recall, we were the first one to really allow a PLO, Palestinian Liberation, PNA embassy to be established in Delhi. In 1997, I signed the papers, the agreement with the PNA on this handover of the land for their embassy. We had moved away from that kind of a ideological position, and for good reason, because all the agreements signed in 1993, the Oslo Accord, etc., have actually not led to a proper implementation and establishment of an independent Palestinian state, the two-state solution. That is number one. Number two, Israel itself has come to be accepted even in Middle East as a partner, as a relationship. Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc., Qatar is a holdout, but there are only one or two countries which are a holdout really. India is part of a agreement called I2U2. Therefore, the situation is very different really now. I don't think that with the exception of an impact on the Indian citizen, at a political level or at an economic level, I should expect any great change in India's interactions in the region.